All right, let's break down this matchup for the co-main event between the number 4 ranked middleweight in the world and an unranked challenger looking to have the biggest leapfrog into the top 5 rankings that we've ever seen in the UFC. Now, let's break this fight down by the tail of the tape. We got Edmen Shahbazyan and Brendan Allen, both of the same height, 1 inch reach advantage. Edmen is a 2 year younger fighter, and then both of them are in the orthodox stance. And with a minus 350 favorite, Brendan Allen comes in as the majority opponent that should win this fight. Edmen Shahbazyan, the plus 285 underdog. Let's break down what makes the number 4 middleweight so great, shall we? Brendan Allen, let's see what we got here. He trains now that he moved from Kill Clip FC to Valley Flow Striking with Bilal Muhammad, who's competing in the main event this weekend. That is his new gym that he's training with, and he's had some good success lately. He made his UFC debut. Well, first he came off the Contender Series in 2019 by winning his fight by first round submission against Aaron Jeffrey. Then he would make his debut against middleweight contender, not welterweight, Kevin Holland, and would defeat him by second round rear naked choke. Now let's look at his last 5 fight record, shall we? Okay, so these are the last 5 fights he's had, including a grappling match with someone that's in the middleweight rankings himself. Let's break them down, shall we? So he would beat Chris Curtis by a 5 round split decision war, which this was a rematch, as you see in the screen behind you, Allen Curtis 2, because the first time Curtis knocked out Brendan Allen, and then this was Brendan Allen's opportunity to get revenge back at a similar opponent, and he was able to defeat him via split decision. But then unfortunately, the decision went against him when he lost to the number 2 ranked middleweight in the world currently, Nasruddin Imavov, in his home country of France, mind you. And then would go back-to-back losses, losing to the number 7 currently ranked middleweight in the world, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who also had a prior victory against Brendan in the LFA days when he defeated him 3 rounds for the LFA middleweight championship, ladies and gentlemen. And then here's the fight that became so interesting because these men, Brendan Allen on the left, Marvin Vettori on the right, were involved in a casino like floor fight, and then they had to get this fight actually taking place in the octagon. When they did, Brendan Allen would win by 3 round unanimous decision, and this fight would be so awesome. It would win fight of the night at the UFC 318 pay-per-view. And the only person who did not think this was awesome was Max Holloway. He's telling Dustin Poirier backstage after their fight, it's some bull, you know, because they thought they should have won fight of the night. And then we keep moving on in the rest of Brendan Allen's career. And now we get this main event announcement between Renier de Ridder and Anthony Hernandez. And unfortunately, Hernandez pulls out and is replaced by Brendan Allen Allen. Renier de Ridder is at the time the number 4 ranked middleweight in the world after just coming off of beating Robert Whitaker in a 3 round or 5 round split decision. And in this fight, Brendan Allen would defeat him via 4th round corner stoppage TKO. Now, the most impressive wins that is on Brendan Allen's record starts with this man first, Punahele Soriano. Now, when Punahele Soriano came into the UFC in 2019, came off the Contender Series, had 2 fights, was undefeated 8-0, and the first loss on his record would come, fortunately, to Brendan Allen. He beat Oscar Picciotto, then he would beat Dustin Stoltzfus, and then after that, he would be unfortunately matched up with Brendan All. Or no, that's right, that's right. This is his Contender Series fight. This is his against Oscar Picciotto, and this is Dustin Stoltzfus. My apologies. Then he gets unfortunately matched up with Brendan Allen and would lose 3 round unanimous decision for Mr. All In. And the second most impressive victory on Brendan Allen's record, Andre Muniz. Let's look at what Andre Muniz built before he took on Brendan Allen. Look at this. He was on check this out. He came into the UFC, made his debut against Bruno Assis. Then they brought him to come back and fight Taylor Johnson again on Contender Series. Let's look at it, shall we? So yeah, that's the first fight. That's the second fight. This is the one that would get him his UFC contract finally. And then he came into the UFC, won his first fight against Antonio Aurora. Came in and armbarred. And he would go on an armbar like stretch. Armbar Jacare Souza for literally one of the most accomplished grapplers in the sport of mixed martial arts, and he broke his arm in the middle of this fight. Then he would face Eric Anders and would defeat him via armbar. And then he would defeat Uriah Hall via 3-round unanimous decision. And this would be Uriah Hall's last fight of his career. So then Andre Muniz is forced to fight Brendan Allen. Well, which firstly, this fight was supposed to be the co-main event, but then got bumped up to the main event when Nikita Krylov and Ryan Spann were unable to compete in this event. It became Allen versus Muniz, Brandon Allen's first ever UFC main event, and he would win by third round rear naked choke against men who's been breaking everyone's arms, and then he got a taste of what it's like to get out jiu-jitsu'd. And now we look at the most impressive win on Brendan Allen's career, Renier de Ridder, the former two Division One FC champion, and then coming into the UFC against Gerald Meerschaert would defeat him via third round submission via arm triangle. Then would defeat Kevin Holland, same opponent that Brendan Allen has defeated as well, but he would beat him by same way, rear naked choke in the first round this time. And then he would defeat Bo Nickel, the most overrated UFC fighter on the roster, and he would do it by second round TKO. Yep, he would defeat him by second round TKO. That was the record over Renier de Ridder, my bad. And then folded him like a lawn chair by kneeing him right to the body. And then he would get his first main event against the former middleweight champion, Robert Whitaker. Went 5-round split decision, and your winner, Renier de Ridder, getting the number 4 ranked middleweight in the world after that. And then getting matched up against Anthony Hernandez. And then he pulls out. And then Brandon Allen steps in. He is disheveled, defeated in his corner. He cannot continue for the 5th round. The referee, Jason Hurdog, stops the contest, and Brendan Allen is your winner and is now your number 4 middleweight in the world. And then let's look at his losses. He's lost to Sean Strickland, the 2-time UFC middleweight champion as of today, ladies and gentlemen. Lost to Chris Curtis, which he avenged. He avenged it. And then his losses as of recent to Nasruddin Imavov and Anthony Flippin Hernandez, which was also a rematch of the fight they had back in the LFA. Now let's look at his opponent, the man that will try and make the biggest leapfrog into the rankings, Edmen, the Golden Boy Shahbazyan. This man trains with Extreme Tour. Ironically enough, there you see Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland in the corner with the rest of the team with them. This is going to be interesting with the ties that he's had so many fights against their fighters multiple times. It's going to be a testament of like what are they telling him in the training room. Let's see. Well, let's first say that he made his debut just like Brendan Allen did off the Contender Series, coming off of the Ronda Rousey's gym in Glendale, California, and defeated him by first round TKO. Then he would come in and defeat his opponent, Darren Stewart. Yep, made his UFC debut with a split decision victory over Darren Stewart. Now let's look at the last 5 fights of Edmen Shahbazyan, shall we? This is him beating AJ Dotson, unanimous decision. He defeated by first round knockout. I'm sorry. And then he would lose via second round submission to Gerald Meerschaert, someone we all have seen in this list before. And then he would start his win streak back again. Yes, here's the arm triangle choke. Starting by beating Dylan Budka. Yes, sending him back to the canvas. This was such a lopsided fight. He had a 7-5 record. And then he would defeat Andre Petrosky, who was developing a good win streak himself. And then he would beat Andre Muniz, this would be the last fight of Andre's UFC career. And then that would be the ending of his tenure in the company. And now we lead to this Saturday's co-main event against Brendan Allen. But then let's look at the 3 most impressive wins. I mentioned earlier, Darren Stewart was on a 2-fight win streak against Eric Spicely and Charles Byrd before he lost the split decision fight to Edmen Shahbazyan, mind you. Again, that's him beating Eric Spicely, tough Ultimate Fighter 23 veteran, then beating Charles Byrd, and sending him down to the canvas and then losing split decision to the Golden Boy. The second most impressive victory in Edmen's career is, like I said, Andre Petrosky had a 3-fight win streak that he was developing. That's a grappling matchup that does not count. He had 3 straight wins against Josh Fremd. I was at this fight live and UFC Fight Night in Denver, Colorado. He would beat the same opponent that we just mentioned, Edmen Shahbazyan defeated himself, and Dylan Budka, and also Rodolfo Vieira, 6-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion, and then he got out-grappled 3 rounds, unanimous decision. And then 3-round decision unfortunately went the other way for Petroski in favor of the Golden Boy. And the most impressive victory on Edmen's career is Brad Tavares. This is Brad Tavares' career before he took on the Golden Boy. He was on a 4-1 win streak, and his one loss, we'll get to it. Here's his first loss that started the 5-fight stretch, losing to the future middleweight champion of the world, Robert Whittaker, via first-round knockout. Yes, he got sent to the Shadow Realm. And we all know, like I said, he's the future middleweight champion of the world. Not bad. So then he would beat Kyle Magalhães, 3-round unanimous decision. He would then beat Elias Theodorou, rest in peace up there, not with us anymore. Then he would beat Thales Leites, a former middleweight title challenger in himself, and then would knock out, technical knockout, I mean, Krzysztof Jotko in the third round before he could go to the judges' scorecards. And then he gets matched up in his first and only main event for Brad Tavares' career against the future pound-for-pound #1 fighter and two-time middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya, and would go to a 5-round unanimous decision loss to the Stylebender. And like I said, would go on to become a UFC Hall of Famer and UFC champion. So then he gets head kick knockout by the Golden Boy in his next bout right after his main event loss, sending him to the canvas and giving Edmen Shahbazyan his biggest victory. Until right after that, he would say his first loss to Derek Brunson, making him fold and collapse and break within the third round of the fight, or second round, I should say, actually. And then he would lose 3-round unanimous decision to Jack Hermanson. He would then get smashed by or these are his losses, mind you. This is a similar loss to Nasruddin Imavov, but this was a second round TKO stoppage. Yep, there's him. He's not even there to get his hand raised or to have the referee hold his hand. And yes, similar opponent that has beaten Brendan Allen as well, Nasruddin Imavov. There's Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who defeated Edmen Shahbazyan as well, and he's also somebody who's defeated Brendan Allen also. So I got Brendan Allen. If you want to ask me my prediction, I think it's going to be second round submission. He's very good at jiu-jitsu, and as you saw in the replays and the losses that Edmen has suffered, he can get broke very easily. But I do think that if Brendan Allen is going to do this in a particular way, it's going to be a submission via rear naked choke, just like he submitted Kevin Holland when he made his UFC debut. He's going to do the same thing to the Golden Boy and keep his #4 ranking spot.